Hello and welcome to the show. Today we're taking a closer look at challenges associated with irregular water supply in India and how one solution that's woven around mobile phones and simple SMSes is making lives better for the average Indian. The wait for water supply leads to a tremendous amount of productivity loss for a vast majority of Indians. NextDrop, a technology startup, is attempting to change this by leveraging the country's high mobile phone penetration rates. Anu Sridharan, the co-founder, and the team at NextDrop are working closely with the water department to inform citizens of water supply timings via SMS services. In the span of just 3 years, Anu and the team at NextDrop have signed up over 16,000 citizens for their SMS information service, helping these citizens better manage their daily lives. Anu, great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Before I dive into understanding how NextDrop works and the solution that you brought about using simple SMSes, I think it'll be great if you shed some light on the problem itself, right? How big is the problem associated with irregular water supply in India?
Sure. I think it's a little known fact. I think you mentioned it in the beginning, but no city in India, barring Jamshedpur and now Nagpur, has 24/7 water, which is water all the time. I think a lot of people think they have 24/7 water. I remember talking to my cousin in Mumbai. They said, no, you don't have 24/7. She said, no, but I turn on the tap and it's on. I think a lot of people have good coping mechanisms. Yeah. And so, you have tanks, underwater sumps, or if you live in an apartment building, you have an apartment manager who makes sure there's water all the time. But if you're lucky enough to not have to deal with the water, you might think you have it. But there's a lot of other people who actually have to be responsible for collecting their own water. Mm-hmm. Whether that's turning on your pump to send it up to your overhead tank, or if that's collecting and you don't have an overhead tank, collecting it in jars to store in your house for drinking. And so that's kind of the full spectrum. Now the problems associated with that, if you're the highest spectrum, you have a maid or somebody else to take care of it, it's not an issue. But you keep going down, so one step below that is, you have a man and a woman who both work, and one of them has to stay at home to collect water, so they kind of alternate. Or more commonly, the woman usually stays at home because she's a housewife, and so she's tasked with, well, you're at home anyway, might as well collect the water too. And to be quite honest, I was quite cynical when my friend brought this problem to me. I said, well, people are at home anyway. Like, how big a deal is this, But when I actually went out to look at the issue, it's quite a big deal because if you think about it, I mean, my mom is amazing. Just because she stays at home doesn't mean she's just sitting there watching TV. She has a million things she's doing. She has to go to the grocery store. She has to, you visit relatives. You have to run errands. And if you have to wait at home because there's no, you don't know when the water's going to come, I mean, that's a problem. And so women feel chained to their homes because of this. The only reason I use that phraseology, chained to their homes, is we had a session to ask customer feedback, and that's what one woman said is, NextDrop, you've actually set me free. You've made it so that I don't have to stay at my house, wondering when the water's coming. I can go anywhere, and then I could come back when I know the water's on.
Not being able to deliver water on a regular basis is a big problem. But if you, attack it in a way where you can cope with it, which is what you've done, it becomes a little simpler, right? So tell me, how are you helping people cope with this problem?
Sure. There's irregular water supply. I'm not going to try. Immediately, we decided not to tackle that problem, but let's tackle the irregularity. Well, what if I just told you when the water comes on? Then that would make it a lot easier to deal with this uncertainty. So we text you an hour before water comes on. Or if you don't use text message, we call you. So you send an automated voice call an hour before water comes on. That was the first product. And as we grew, we realized that there were other problems to solve. Well, why does water not come all the time? Well, that's a management issue. And as we dug into that, we realized that the water utilities, I would say, really do want to provide water to people. They just lacked insight into their system. Now, barring full sensor networks, which cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and only actually 35 cities in the US have this system. Okay. How about easy ways to help the utility manage their system better to reduce uncertainty? And that's when we kind of came up with this idea of the two-way communication channel between governments and citizens, where we use their ground level staff and citizen comments and relayed that information back to the utility and visualized it and got the right information to the right people at the right time on both the customer side and the utility side.
Now, working with ground level staff isn't an easy thing to do. They're really, really spread out.
Right.
So how are you doing that? Does, let's say, the water board in Hubli, where you started, help you identify this ground level staff and help, connect you with them? Or do you go out there on the ground, talk to them? How do you build a relationship with them if they are the ones giving you the information that you need, which you are then relaying to the end user or the citizen?
Sure. So what we do is we do both. We first get into a relationship with the utility, so we make it so that it's the valveman's job to give us this information. After that, we work with the valveman directly, that's the utility's ground level staff, to directly engage them and to keep that relationship and make sure that that information is continuous.
So here's a look at how the NextDrop system works. The system gathers water supply information from valvemen. It SMSes out this information to citizens an hour before water supply is due. Citizens can SMS back to confirm supply or report delays and leakages via missed calls. The NextDrop system not only passes on complaints to water departments to facilitate servicing, but also records and processes all this data to identify and predict patterns. Now tell me, how have you been able to recruit citizens onto your SMS service, information service? How do they find out that NextDrop exists? How do they sign up for it? And what does it cost them?
Sure. Just a little history. We started in 2010, 2011 actually. I moved and we got 10,000 people to sign up in the first couple months. It was very exciting.
And did you go
door to door? Door to door, 10,000 people. Actually 20,000 people. And then so we realized that there was all of this demand. And we spent the last year and a half really building out the back-end technology to service that demand. And out of those 20,000 pieces of paper, we have 15,000 actual people receiving messages now. And now, because we've spent the last year building out the technology, we're now trying to make that push. In Hubli, Dharwad, I think it's still very grassroots. We have people going door to door. We're targeting colleges. That's happening this month and next month. And in Bangalore, we're going digital. So this month, we're releasing our first version of an app, which is very exciting. We think that in Bangalore, one draw is not only when the water is coming, but also being able to report problems and really have a voice. And I think that's something that people really value. That's our hypothesis. And so we'll really see with this app coming out, what segment of the population we target and how they respond to that.
Sure. I think apps are useful for people like you and me who probably have smartphones and can download them and use them. Like the SMS service is probably where you're going to get the biggest response because a larger section of the population does not have smartphones. Now, you started, when you started talking, you mentioned sort of some of the positive stories you've heard about how women feel like they've been liberated, they're not tied down to the house anymore, and they've been free, which means that, let's say, if it's someone who, let's say, even does domestic work, she can manage her day better because she gets those SMSes, right? Do you also tell them how long the water supply is going to be for, or is that something that's preset for areas and therefore people already know? That's
a good question. Right now, we just tell them an hour before water comes on. I think as we evolve, we'll be able to say for how long the water is on for, but currently we don't have that information. And I think it really depends on pressure, so how much pressure is available. And so we're trying to work with people more and more upstream, so we have more information to do more predictive sort of information provision. So last month we launched a service where you could actually pull information on when is my water on next. Because we had data, we wrote some predictive algorithms, and we can predict when your water is on next with some degree of certainty, depending on the area and the information.
Now, how difficult or how easy has it been working with water boards?
I actually would have to say that it's been a good experience. I think when you say government, people automatically say, oh, that's not possible. But it's been really great. I think it really depends on who you talk to, and so really understanding the landscape, who can be your champion. And I still believe that at least in every government entity, there will at least be one person who's interested in championing your cause. It's really your job to find that person. And in the utilities that we've worked in, we've been able to find them and make progress.
That's really cool. Now, Tell me, how did this all come about? How did NextDrop come about?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't take credit for it. It was my friend, Emily. She was doing her PhD at Berkeley, and in Hubli, Dharwad, there's a World Bank project going on that's bringing 24/7 water to the city. And she was really studying the effects of water quality in pressurized areas and non-pressurized areas. And she found that during her PhD, instead of spending her time, analyzing samples, she was waiting for them. Literally, most of her time was spent waiting for water samples. So she thought if it was a problem for her, it was probably a problem for most of the people there. So she brought it back to a class at Berkeley. They came up with a solution, and I was kind of her friend who had dinner with her once a week. And so she said, hey, Anu, we have this idea called NextDrop. We want some money to do a pilot. Are you interested? And I said, yeah, sure. I'm not doing anything this summer. So, we ran the pilot. It went well.
So it really just started as a student project?
It was a student project. It was literally, I don't have anything better to do. Okay, let's do this,
You're 5 co-founders now, correct? 5
Yeah.
co-founders, and then how big is the team under you?
15. Oh, 10 people under that.
10
so
people.
we have 15 altogether.
Okay. And how is this funded?
Yeah, it's actually amazing how much free money is out there.
I'll ask you offline about that.
Yeah, so that was kind of how it started, and we got some prototypes going. So we won some business plan competitions, and then we got a larger grant from the Knight Foundation. And then after that, so of course we were really good at spending money, we got funded by the Social Capital Partnership, which is a VC in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And we recently were awarded another grant. So
fantastic,
yeah.
Fantastic. Having come this far, the goals at NextDrop are not small, and neither is the size of the issue. Anu Sridharan shares about the size of the water supply challenge in India and beyond, what the goals at NextDrop are, and what their work means to her. So what are the growth plans like? Are you looking at just India? Are you looking at beyond?
Yeah, so I don't think I properly answered the first question, is how big is the problem? It's actually 90% of South Asia and 33% of Latin America and Africa face the same problem. We've already been approached by people in Latin America, Kenya, different places, where we said, no, we got to figure it out first. Let's get the model, do it right. So right now we're looking to scale to India. First, we're trying to do Karnataka, prove out a state. Then after state, you can either repeat it 28 times, or you kind of go larger.
Okay.
So the next 2 years, we hope to be in all of India.
Wow.
Yeah, go big or go home, right? I mean, and this information asymmetry problem, I think at the most abstract level, that's really what it is. And it's not just in the water sector. It's pretty much in any public service delivery. Power, transportation, pension payments. And so that's really what we're tackling. And I think then it'll be opportunistic, whether you scale globally or whether you scale horizontally into other verticals.
Sounds like you want to be the Google, of the social world. Every sector, wherever there's a problem, we'll come fix your problem and help you communicate with each other.
I like solving
but that's
problems.
great. That's ambitious, but that's exciting too.
Yeah.
Tell me, what does this work mean to you personally? You've been at this for a few years now.
Yeah.
Home is Berkeley.
Southern California.
Southern California. That's where your family is.
My family.
And you've come away and you're here living with your team, sharing a home, and this is what you do full time. What does this work mean to you?
It's something that I saw myself doing when I was little. I think when you're little, things make an impression on you, when you're 6. And you have no idea what inequity is, but then you land in the Mumbai airport before they cleaned it up, and you see kids like you who don't have shoes or, don't have things that you have. I think that really makes an impression on you. And I remember that was really the driving force for a lot of the things that I did later on. And I just remember everyone saying, you're too young, Anu, you're too young, Anu. Don't just worry about finishing school, worry about doing this, don't worry about that till later. And I think I was just really thankful that the opportunity finally came for me to do what I wanted to do. And I would say I'm just really lucky, Not very many people get this opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show, and all the best to NextDrop.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.